Well, hey there, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming the CEO of Your Life, the show that's all about helping busy women regain control of their lives and achieve peaceful productivity. I am your host, Janeen Alley, and I'm a unique combination of life coach, productivity expert, and yoga teacher committed to empowering you to make the most of your time, all while finding balance and more peace in your life. So, on today's show, we are going to be delving into a topic that is incredibly relevant to the lives of many of you, the concept of the gap and the gain, taken from the book, The Gap and the Gain by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. This is one of my favorite books. If you have not read it, I want to encourage you to buy the book, particularly after the episode today. If you feel like, wow, that was really good, I want to learn more about that. I've been meaning to do a podcast about this book for a really long time. This episode has been kind of waiting in the wings for a long time. And so I'm really excited to share this content because this is something that I'm thinking about a lot in my own life, as well as a tool that I use with my own clients. So today we're going to explore our constant focus on what's left to accomplish. When we're trying to reach a goal, we have this tendency to feel like we're never going to get there because we get stuck in what we're calling today on the show the gap. And this can leave us feeling really discouraged and deflated. What I want to teach you today is by shifting our perspective to celebrating our progress when we're in the gain, this can actually lead to a more peaceful and productive and actually fulfilling life. So I want to just quickly start out by defining what I mean by the gap and the gain after that brief little introduction. So I want you to think about a goal that you want to achieve currently in your life. And I want you thinking, okay, I'm just going to represent that goal with number 30. Okay. So 30 can represent whatever goal that you're trying to achieve. We're just going to make this a little bit easier by using a number. Okay. So of course you're not going to get to 30 right out of the gate, right? It's going to take you some time in order to achieve your goal, whether it's training for a marathon or whether it's building a business or writing a book or whatever it is that you have on your list. Okay. So let's say we're working toward 30. And as we get started, let's say at the end of week 1, we've only made it to the number 2. We still have a little bit of that initial momentum and excitement. Maybe not as excited as when we first got going because we didn't achieve 30 in the first week. Maybe it wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. But at the end of week 4, we've only made it to 10. We don't celebrate now that you're at a 10. Our brains usually fixate on the fact that we still have 20 to go. So instead of thinking that we're at a positive 10, we're usually thinking that we're at a negative 20. So the gap represents this mindset of always striving for more. We're focusing on what's left to accomplish. And this was one of the things that I found was a problem. Even after I reached a goal that I had been working at for a really long time, I didn't even take the time to stop and celebrate. I was just on to the next goal, right? We're not focused on how far we've come. We're always focused on how far we have to go. And this often leads to perfectionism and comparing ourselves to other people. So if we find ourselves accustomed to hustling, we're particularly prone to this mentality due to the endless to-do lists that we have for ourselves, right? We're living in this age where we're constantly reminded of how we're falling short, right? Because we're seeing other people's beautiful behind the scenes reels all the time, right? On social media, in the news, like that. We're always connected to each other. And we often find ourselves not measuring up. We also have a realistic view of our life, right? Or I should put realistic in quotations because, again, we're focusing in on the gap. We're often focusing on how far we have left to go, but we're not seeing this in the context of other people's lives. So it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm falling short and I have got something wrong with me. Yes, I'm not able to knock it out of the park on day 1. And it seems like for everyone else, it's a whole lot easier, which compounds that gap. Okay, now the gain, on the other hand, encourages us to acknowledge and celebrate our progress and our accomplishments, no matter how small they may seem to us. So this helps us to shift our perspective from what's left to achieve to what we've already achieved. And this mindset can actually lead to greater fulfillment and peace in our lives as we are striving to reach the goals we haven't accomplished yet, which is most days, right? I know that I'm not achieving goals every single day, at least big ones, right? I am definitely getting things done, but it's not like these big momentous things. So I'm not reaching these monumental goals every single day of the week. And I know some of you are thinking, but how do I actually get the goal if I'm not kind of in that mindset of like, you've got to get your butt in gear because you still have so far to go? How do I actually get myself to get up in the morning and get going on things? Well, I want to just ask you for a moment. How does it feel when you're flogging yourself towards a goal? Like, you haven't accomplished this yet. You need to keep going. Look how far you have to go. I mean, how does that feel? It usually feels kind of deflating, right? But if you're looking at the progress that you've made, now you've got a boost. Like, you've got this tailwind kind of energy behind you. Like, wow, I have come a long way. I can keep going. This could actually be fun. It could actually even be something that's possible for me. So you do want to keep your eye on the prize, but without that constant conversation that you're behind or you're falling short or you're not good enough or you'll never make it there. Okay. That isn't going to be helpful along your path. Okay, so of course, there are some specific pitfalls of the gap mentality that I want to talk about. So perfectionism, of course, is one of them. The gap mindset can really foster this perfectionism of making us feel like nothing is ever good enough, because clearly it's not good enough because we haven't reached the goal yet, right? This perfectionism can lead to stress. It can lead to anxiety and, of course, burnout as we relentlessly pursue unattainable standards for ourselves. I had a friend describe it as a Hong Kong taxi driver, where the way that people drive there is they have both feet on both pedals at the same time. You have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. So you feel like this perfectionism helps to kind of elevate this standard, like, oh, it's got to be like this. And so you've kind of got this faux sense that you are stepping on the gas, but at the same time, what you're actually doing is you're slamming on the brakes. So think about it for a moment. If you're feeling like the efforts that you're making aren't ever going to be good enough, you're going to self-sabotage every time, right? Okay, the second pitfall to the gap mentality is, of course, comparing yourself to other people. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we're comparing a space in our lives, seeing all the pieces of it. We're seeing how we're not quite there yet. We're also hopefully taking a look at how far we've come, usually not, but if we're taking a look at somebody's beautiful photos on Instagram and we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, this can, of course, be detrimental to our self-esteem and our mental health, let alone our actual goal, right? It can lead to feelings of inadequacy and dissatisfaction with our own progress all the time. When we should be celebrating the progress that we're making, we're not focusing on that. We're constantly in our minds falling short and not good enough. And of course, this is going to lead to burnout every single day of the week, right? The gap mentality is going to contribute to that fatigue and exhaustion as we continuously push ourselves without considering our well-being. This is why our culture has such a toxic relationship with time and productivity. And this is why I'm trying to change that conversation. It's because you can get things done without flogging yourself to get there. You can actually get things done and enjoy the journey as you're going along, because this burnout, of course, is going to leave us not only physically drained, but also mentally and emotionally exhausted as well. And this is why so many people just throw in the towel on their goals. Like, I cannot keep up this pace. It's not necessarily the physical pace of the goal. It's the mental and emotional exhaustion that accompanies this burnout from staying in the gap. Okay, so when we shift our focus, however, to the gain, we're celebrating the small accomplishments that we're making along the way. We're able to embrace this practice of celebrating even the smallest accomplishments in our daily life. We're able to recognize that every single step forward is a gain worth acknowledging and celebrating. And this can totally boost your self-esteem and your motivation. Like I said, if you're focusing on the gain, you've got this really nice kind of tailwind. If you've ever ridden a bike, along with the wind, it feels like, oh my gosh, this is easy breezy, right? If you turn around and start pedaling the other direction, you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that even going downhill sometimes can feel like effort when you're not biking along with the wind, right? So what I want you to focus on is I want you to get in this mentality that you're celebrating your wins along the way. This is something that one of my very first business coaches suggested that we focus on, is the wins that we're making. And this is why. is because it helps us to continue to progress without that feeling of defeat. Another reason why this is super helpful actually is because if you're like me and you're used to your normal MO is like writing everything that you need to do down on your list for the day. And it's like 30 things long, right? And you're able to only accomplish maybe 5 or 6 things on the list. I shouldn't say only, but this is the way that we talk to ourselves. You were only able to get 5 or 6 things done. You're not celebrating the 5 or 6 things done that you actually accomplished. Your brain is focusing on the 24, 25 things that you didn't actually get to during the day. So we have this sense of like being time optimistic is what I call it, where we think that we can accomplish more in the day. If the sun is shining, nobody asks us any questions, we're not distracted by anything. maybe we can get more like half of those things done, but we're still unrealistic in the things that we're actually able to accomplish during the day with all of the extra moving parts that we don't really think about when we're creating the lists. And so when we're in the gain, we're actually celebrating the 5 or 6 things that we got done, but we're also able to break down larger tasks into smaller, manageable steps to avoid feeling overwhelmed with everything. By setting these achievable goals, it enables us to experience this sense of accomplishment more frequently. And this approach keeps you, again, motivated and focusing on the progress and taking those little baby steps forward. One of the things that I learned from Jody Moore, who is also a life coach and somebody who I love to listen to and learn from, one of the things that she said was, I just created my business, and she has a multi-million-dollar business. I only created my business by taking the next best step. And that is how we do this, is by focusing on the gains that we're making. Okay, so how do we actually stay in the gain? I want to share some really practical tips for peaceful productivity to help you, of course, stay in the gain. So the first thing is to celebrate your wins. You want to train your brain to focus on the progress that you've made instead of how far you still need to go. So it's just an exercise in noticing the wins and writing them down. I would suggest writing 3 wins down every single day. What are some of the things that you got done during the day today? And how are you making progress on your goals? Focus on those things. And if you can't think of anything for the day, you can think about in the past. It makes a difference. I promise you it does. Okay, the second thing is you have to take care of your nervous system. And I cannot emphasize this enough. If you've missed some of the more recent episodes that I've done on the podcast talking about nervous system regulation, I really want to encourage you to go back and listen to these. Because when we're in the gap, when we feel like we're lacking or we're falling behind, or we need to catch up on our goals, it kind of puts us into this fight or flight response where we've got these bells and whistles and alarms going off in our brain, like you're not good enough, you need to step it up. Okay. This puts us in this fight or flight space where the way that we talk to ourselves is, I got to get this done, or this needs to happen right now. So to get yourself out of this conversation and help you relax, you have to regulate your nervous system first. Okay. Like I said, I've done a few episodes on this lately, so go back and listen to those. Okay, the next thing is you have to learn to exercise restraint. This is going to help you to create balance in your schedule. Okay, and inside of the Burnout Breakthrough, I talk about how to do this by practicing elimination in your life. It's one of my favorite things to do, actually, is cut things out of my schedule or eliminate things that are just too distracting to me, just even on my desk or in my life, like all kinds of things. So I love to eliminate, but we have a tendency, typically, I know most of you and my listening audience are what I call multi-passionate moms who love to take things on. We're interested in things. We like to take classes. We like to learn things, and we're capable of saying yes to a lot. And so we do. We say yes to a lot of things because we can, and we're interested, and we don't like to tell ourselves no in particular. So we also don't like to say no to other people, but that's another topic that I'm going to hit on in just a second. So we have to learn how to restrain ourselves to prevent ourselves from overworking and overscheduling our lives. We also need to learn how to say no to other people. This really is vital. We have to learn how to prioritize tasks and activities that align with our goals and our values. And if somebody asks and it is in alignment with those things, then we can say yes. But if not, and most of the time it's not, it's okay for us to decline commitments that don't contribute positively to our own lives, because there are things that matter to us that get pushed to the back burner or off the schedule altogether because we're constantly saying yes to other people's agendas. We need to allocate time for our priorities, which means we have to get clear on the things that we are taking on with our family and work and our self-care and relaxation to maintain our overall well-being. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we kind of need to, in order to stay in the game, I want you to almost broaden your definition of what it means to be productive. So productivity isn't solely about completing tasks and checking all the boxes on your list. It encompasses nurturing your mental, physical, emotional health as well. So self-care is part of peaceful productivity. I hope I've made this really clear on the podcast, but it really is. And I know for some people, self-care can be kind of a triggering word, but I want you to just take this and understand that when we take care of ourselves, it helps us to show up in a more intentional and mindful and restful way. And that really is the goal. At least that's the goal for me, right? And that's the goal for me creating this podcast. So hopefully that's your goal too, since you're listening. But you want to think about things that you do that help to nourish your soul, like building relationships and finding joy in everyday moments. These are all vital components of being productive in my sense of the word. So it's not, like I said, just checking the boxes. It's creating this emotional resilience and well-roundedness that helps you to actually enjoy the life that you're working so hard to create. Otherwise, what we do is we get caught in that rat race of focusing on a never-ending to-do list, and that just creates so much stress for ourselves, which stinks. Okay, so that's what I have for you guys today on the podcast. I hope this was a good episode and you're able to see that by shifting your focus from the gap into the gain and adopting some of these more practical tips and strategies that I've shared with you, you can rediscover that sense of peace and productivity that has long been missing from your life. I want to thank you for joining me today on this episode of Becoming the CEO of Your Life. Remember, you do not have to constantly be hustling and feeling overwhelmed by endless to-do lists. By embracing this gain mentality and implementing practical strategies for peaceful productivity, you can live a more balanced and fulfilled and peaceful life. All right, before you go, if you found this episode valuable, I would love it if you shared it with your friends and family. If you are interested in joining me inside the Burnout Breakthrough, now is the time. I'm actually doing a Black Friday special. I don't know if I'll ever do this ever again, but I am running a Black Friday special currently. You can find it at janeenalley.com/Black Friday, or you can reach out to me on Instagram at Janeen Alley Coaching, and I can answer all of your questions over there and give you more information in order for you to make an informed decision about whether this is the right program and the right time for you to be joining me. If you're even thinking about it, I want to really encourage you to watch the masterclass that I've done to get a sense of what the program is about and how it can help you to become more peacefully productive in your life. It really is a foundational piece to whatever it is that you are striving to create right now in your life, whether that's a goal, better relationships, anything that you want to have in your life. This is kind of the foundational piece in order to get there. I have reached some crazy goals in my life, and I have hustled the hardest in order to get there. And in the process of doing that, it has taken its toll on my overall health and also the relationships with the people that I love the most. And this is why I am so passionate about becoming peacefully productive, is because it does have this ripple effect and it affects all of the things that are the most important to you. So if you are interested in joining me, like I said, now is the time to really look into it. I know that you're just like, oh, but the holidays, and I know that there are some expenses probably on the horizon for you, Christmas gifts and things like that. But I want you to think about how you would feel different about the holidays if you had some support to help you enjoy your loved ones and all the things that are special to you, particularly this time of year. All right, my friends, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you. Bye-bye.